Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. All right, so here we go. What's going on, guys? This is a special edition for you. So I want to start with just a quote. Waiting has killed more dreams than action could ever in a lifetime. Hi, guys. My name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life Opportunity Knocking. When was the last time you got really excited about taking a step or an opportunity or a trip, whatever it may be? I want you to picture that defining moment in your mind and then think of what happened immediately after that. Sometimes when you have this stroke of inspiration where you get inspired to make a decision, to make a move towards a certain goal or a direction, it's not long after that you're met with some skepticism, some pessimism. Your mind tries to look at both sides. Well, yeah, this is what I want, it says, but let me first weigh out what the possibilities are, the pros and cons. You look and you look at the two and you can't really make heads or tails. By default, our minds typically skew in the way of being more conservative in the sense of safety. So it's impossible to try to figure out, all right, well, what are the chances of things going well, things going not well? Because the person who it's up to is really you. And the longer you drag out that decision, the less likely you are to make the decision in favor of that inspired action. So, on this podcast here, I want you to think of something. What is something that you felt the inspiration to do? This is going in the past. I want you to look for the example where you had inspiration, but because you dwelled and bathed in the negative things, the things that might go wrong, you never took any action at all. Next, I want you to think of something where you just said, screw it. You just got so excited and you saw exactly what you wanted. You took the action, you went for it. What was the result then? The intention of this podcast here is for you to pull something that you're currently thinking about, something you want, and to realize where you're kind of tripping up, where you're stubbing your toe that's preventing you from moving forward. I wanted to go to Italy for quite a while, not just in a trip, but for an extended period of trip, meaning with no, open-ended, meaning like I book a one-way trip, I'm there, and then I'll figure out what comes after that. This inspiration came back in 2006 when I was living in Italy for 3 months. Back then, I would have stayed in Rome had I been able to get my citizenship and working papers. I had to come back. But then while I was home, when I started my business and I started getting involved in different things, the timing just didn't feel right. So when I got the citizenship, it didn't feel like it was the opportune time to go. But that aspiration never left my mind. It never left my soul. Years would pass. 3 years later, I would look back and be like, man, I should have done it. 3 years after that, I looked back and I'm like, I should have done it 3 years ago. 3 years after that, I look back and I'm like, oh, I should have done it 3 years ago. It was like the decision had never left. It just kept sliding because there was never a perfect time, right? I was always saying, well, this is not a good time because I have to do X with my business. This is not a good time because now I have to do Y. And there was always something coming up. And that's probably the main point I wanted to first make in the story. And there's always going to be something that's going to prevent you from or try to, get in your way of making whatever decision you want to make to better yourself, to better your life, to have an experience. So acknowledging that first. And then the opportunity comes up. I really do believe that whenever there's something that's really kind of pulling at your heartstrings, very rarely does it ever leave. If anything, you might get so enveloped in life and responsibility that now you're looking at it, and it's almost like looking at something on a pedestal that you just out of reach. And as a result of it being out of reach, as a result of missing that opportunity, now you're living in regret, which is, I think, is one of the worst places to live. So you know exactly what it is you want right now. There are emotions that follow it. One of the things that I constantly feel whenever I have to make a decision like that is I weigh out the good and bad, and I usually will get really nervous. I'll know exactly what it is I want, but then I'll get nervous. What is that? Is that nerve? Is that like what is my emotion? What are my emotions trying to tell me? When you're about to step outside your comfort zone, those nerves will occur naturally. But it's important to do a check-in with yourself to say, okay, well, what is it that I really want, right? What is it I want? How do I feel about this? In my gut, what is this decision that I have to make? What is the right decision? And if you listen and if you are honest with yourself, you'll know what the decision is. Because before you have, before your mind chimes in, your body will almost give you that direction. And then once the mind comes in, then all of a sudden you start worrying, you start to get nervous, and then you get stuck. So I recently just booked a one-way ticket to Rome, leaving this February. I'm very happy about the decision. But leading up to that decision, I was getting really nervous. When I was in Venice and when I was in Rome, specifically Venice, because that's when I was having these epiphanies, I was thinking, man, I want to come back here. I want to, go drink coffee across every single region. I want to learn certain things, document the entire trip. This is what I'm going to do. I come home and now I'm back into the routine, the day-to-day habitual living, the patterns that I had stepped away from briefly. And now all of a sudden looking at that trip, I'm like, well, oh gosh, how can I go now? Looking at the trip before I purchased the ticket, I was constantly seeking out, well, why can't I go? Like, oh, but what if this happens? What if this happens? What if I'm not ready to hand off this aspect of my business? What if I can't find someone to do my deliveries for me? All the what ifs had come in. But I want to ask you a question. What is real, right? As I mentioned before, we try to, when we're faced with a decision, we try to balance and to look at the scale to see which way it's going to tip. We look at the pros, we look at the cons, and we try to see, all right, well, is it going to be more beneficial? Sometimes the answer is obvious. Sometimes all right, say it's a new job, you're going to get paid a lot more, you're going to be a lot happier. Boom, you know what decision, what role to take. But sometimes it's not always that straightforward. Sometimes you're looking at the two and you're trying to see where the balance is sitting. But it's impossible. And the reason why is because you're looking at it from a limited perspective. You're looking at it from where you are today. I'd mentioned in prior podcasts, by just having a perspective shift, by changing the environment you're in, all of a sudden now new opportunities become available because you've taken yourself out of that routine. So you've looked now, you're trying to balance the two sides. You're like, oh, well, which one is correct? Is it going to be more advantageous for me to make a move or not? You don't know. The truth is that this entire process, what you're walking through in your head, is the process of manifesting, is the process of creating, because you're creating it all in your mind. If you think that you're going to go there and there's not going to be any opportunities and you're going to want to leave, I'm talking about a trip, likely that's going to happen. I still think once you take yourself out of that habitual pattern, out of your environment where everything's new, all of a sudden new things are going to come to you. You're going to start to think differently as well because you're now in the present moment. And it doesn't have to be with traveling. It could be with anything in life. It could be with that new job. Or maybe you want to start your own business. Maybe you want to start a coffee company. You've been thinking about it, but you're really, really nervous about stepping out. But you know what you're going to get if you just stay where you are. A job where you're punching the clock, the 9 to 5, you hate it. You hate it. But yet you're still scared. You're not yet willing to look at the opportunity that's presented itself because you're too focused on the negative. You're too focused on what could possibly go wrong. What I want you to get here is that you're always, when there's something that you want, when you want something, when your heart wants something, I should say, we want to try to deal with issues of the heart, meaning the things that our heart is calling us to do. I truly believe that what your heart is calling you to do is always the right decision, right? You may try to, like, your mind might make everything all messy, but I really do believe if you want to find happiness, the only way to do that is by following your heart. The heart is always going to lead you in the right direction. Feeling nervous is always going to be a byproduct, right? Because now you've just stepped into the unknown. Now, like, you took a step on faith. But now, I mean, you could have a vision for where you want to go, but there's still a lot of uncertainty there. And you could look at that anxiety, if you want to call it that, and say, well, what is it really? It's really a sense of excitement, right? Because now all of a sudden, all possibilities are on the table, you know, and you know that deep inside, and that could be scary, but it's very exciting. I've never booked a trip. I've never done anything that didn't have this feeling where I wasn't afraid to make a big decision, afraid to make a big leap. I mean, I've been to 47 countries and I am about to top 50 as of this February. And every single trip that I've ever booked, there's always been, well, most of them anyways, there's always been this stirring inside. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be, oh, I'm afraid to go to this new country. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's a fear of leaving home because, maybe something is going to happen with my business. Maybe I'll get all these orders. Maybe I won't be able to, maybe customers will, and I won't be able to step away. Maybe my parents are getting older. Maybe something happens with one of my parents, right? You start to worry. You start to stack these reasons. So those are always going to be present. But the only thing you can go by is your internal compass, really, is, I guess, the main point of it, right? Because you can't worry about what's going to go wrong because you have no control over it. The only thing you can control is your own actions and the steps you take and how you process it and the next steps you take. So in closing, what is a decision that you need to make, right? What is maybe it's an aspiration, something that you want that's going to move you forward in the betterment of your life. Maybe it is booking a trip. Maybe it's quitting that job and starting your own business. Maybe it is getting started on your health. So this way you have the energy and vitality to do the things you want to do in life. Maybe it's spending more time with your child. What is the one thing? And then secondly, where have you been getting stuck? Like, why haven't you made that decision? Why haven't you committed to the thing that you want? And then we'll kind of do a little role playing. What is the cost? Next, what is the cost of you staying where you are? Like, you might look at it and be like, well, yeah, but it's safe. I'm guaranteed a paycheck. Yeah, it's safe and you're guaranteed a paycheck. And you also may be guaranteed emotional death. Because the longer you stay there and you know that it's not a decision, or it's not a place that's aligned with where you really want to be, slowly kind of chips away with you, right? And all of a sudden now you start breaking down your confidence and not being able to, and I mean, listen, I really do believe that there's always second chances, right? Until you hit that threshold where you say, screw this, no more, and then you make the decision. But how much longer do you have to suffer? And now let's look at the positives, right? We could look at all those reasons why you said that you're afraid to do it and flip them around, because the future is unknown, right? You can't project tomorrow from what you've experienced today because it's all unknown. The only thing that it matters right now is this exact moment. The future is unforetold. What opportunities will present themselves as a result of making that decision? How will it change you emotionally? What will you gain? What will you be able to give? What kind of new opportunities? Pick any question, anything that's going to move you to start to focus on what it's going to bring into your life as a result of making the decision. with regard to the decision I just made to book the ticket to Italy. I'm thinking of friends. I am thinking of building coffee content. I'm thinking of drinking coffee in every single region of Italy. I'm thinking of furthering my skills in coffee, learning, the like the latte art, learning how to roast Italian espresso, all these things. I'm like, oh my God. And I thought of that yesterday. Before I even booked the trip, I was like, how awesome would it be literally to have coffee and map out espresso in every single region of Italy? Doesn't really, that might not excite most people. That gets me going. I'm like, oh my God, that would be amazing. So to be able to know what every region does and like the different drink, that to me is like over the top. What is it for you, right? Don't let anybody else poo poo on your goals to say your goals are not worthy, or don't poo poo on your own goals thinking that because it may not feel significant that it's not worthy. Anything that's a desire to you, anything that gets make you feel inspired is worth doing. There is no justification needed. The justification is that you want to do it. That is the only justification you need. So guys, there is a lot of life to live out there. I always move towards traveling when I talk these podcasts. I think that's kind of where I like to put my focus a lot of time, because travel has been one of the biggest things that's impacted my life. It's given me new perspectives on life. It's brought some of the most amazing people into my life, friends that I've had and I will have for the rest of my life. And I'm all about doing your own thing, but get out in the world, see that it's such a big place and that there's so many other ways of doing things, of thinking, of living and being than what you're currently experiencing in your home country, wherever you are. You only get one life. Every single day is a blessing. Not a single day should be taken for granted, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? That's why it's so stupid to plan. I agree. Yes, you need to plan for tomorrow, right? You need to you need to save. You got to plan for your financial future, but not at the cost of living in this moment, of doing the things that are going to light you up. Because if you save all this time for when you retire 10, 15, 20 years from now, what if it doesn't happen? Like, what if something, you break a leg, or you're now in a different financial position where you can't do the travel, you can't do the thing you want to do. That might freak some of you out and say, like, well, all right, even more the reason why I must save now and not do it. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that life is every moment is meant to be seized. When you have an intense feeling, a desire, that is your heart pulling you in a direction. And the only thing, your only responsibility is to heed its call. I want you to have the most passionate expression of your life. That's what I wish and desire for myself, and that's what I wish and desire for you. So get out there, make some new decisions. Notice in your body where your heart is saying. Ask yourself, how do I really feel? What is my gut telling me about this decision here? And then act on that. Don't let, if you wait 2 seconds longer, then the mind's going to chime in and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. Act on your gut, follow your heart. That is all I've got for you guys today. I thank you for tuning in and spending time with me today to listen to this. I hope it impacted you in some way. If you have a decision, something that you've been putting off that you need to make, send me a message, add a comment. I would love to hear it. You could do so by visiting my website, www.donnyraraus.com. Again, donnyraraus.com. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you only get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you again.